What is up, guys? Welcome back. So today I want to talk about hearing your heartbeat in your pillow. If you deal with this, you're not alone. For some of you, you've never dealt with anxiety before, or you never noticed this before and you noticed it. Now you're concerned. For those of you that were like me, you already had anxiety disorder, you had bad health anxiety, or you were already focused on your heart, and this is just one more thing to add into the mix, okay? But if you are dealing with this, you're not alone, okay? If you're seeing this video in the beginning, there might be a few likes, but I'm sure if you've, haven't seen this video for the first year or two, I'm sure there's a lot of comments down here expressing that you're not alone, okay? And a lot of likes on here. So know that, that's the first thing. The next thing, guys, is to realize if you haven't seen a doctor, you're gonna always doubt that there's something wrong with your heart, okay? So if you haven't seen a doctor, that's the first step you need to take. Sure, this video can help somewhat and make you feel less alone. Yeah, I can tell you how anxiety caused it. I can give you some tips, which I'm gonna do to help you get away from it. But if you haven't seen a doctor, you're not gonna technically have that initial reassurance that you need to get the ball moving towards acceptance, okay? It's very, very important. The next thing, guys, beware if you're gonna Google about this, which you probably already have before you saw this video, so you already know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, stay away from it. You're gonna see some stuff like this is caused by anxiety, right? Which for pretty much probably all of you watching, most of you, this is anxiety causing it. But you're also going to see some other stuff that's going to freak the hell out of you. That's just, that comes with any symptom. You can look up any symptom at all. It doesn't matter if it seems like a harmless symptom or a painless symptom. You're going to see horror stories attached to it, or the tiny little statistical chances that it could be something bad, right? So just know that before you Google, and if you have been doing it, it's good to get away from that. Just like it's good to get away from vital checking and all these other behaviors that we develop with this. But my experience with it, guys, I had really bad heart anxiety, okay? So like I said, worried about everything that was involved with the heart, and I had all these other symptoms that went with it. Just a really fast heart rate, high blood pressure every time I checked it or a doctor checked it. I would have numbness, tingling, even down to my left side, left arm pain. And then I had every type of chest pain that you could imagine. So something that happened with me, guys, very early on is I became very hyper aware of my heart. This happened from day one after I had that first massive panic attack that lasted 6 hours. Thought I was having a heart attack. Ever since then, and it didn't help that I always checked my heart rate with my fingers. I didn't have a fancy watch back then. But I was just so in tune. I mean, I swear, I didn't have to just hear my heart rate, my pillow, or heartbeat, my pillow. I could feel my heartbeat and almost tell you how fast it was going just from sitting still. That's how hypersensitive we become. So either you were already hypersensitive before, or you noticed your heartbeat in your pillow, you got freaked out, maybe you had a panic attack, maybe you didn't, maybe you're just like wondering what's going on, is my blood pressure too high? I felt like I heard a skip beat. Then you can become hypersensitive, and then it can lead to other things or worsen anxiety, okay? So maybe you didn't have existing anxiety before. You don't have to for it to turn into anxiety. So now you're becoming more hypersensitive. Let's say you weren't like me, right? And it wasn't, just another thing that went into the package of your heart anxiety or health anxiety or anxiety disorder. Say you just laid your head down one night and you heard your heartbeat and you're like, that's odd. I don't remember hearing this before. Likelihood is you've always been able to hear it. Just this night randomly, maybe you were extra quiet, or maybe you were having trouble falling asleep, and maybe you were just noticing it more. Maybe your heart was beating a little faster than usual. Maybe you laid down after you had a huge meal, right? Sometimes that can make our vitals go up. Maybe you just had a stressful day, and you're noticing it. Or maybe you're just laying a certain way and the pillow's crammed up in your ear more than usual. Maybe for some of you, you usually lay on your back, and this particular time you laid on your side and you noticed it. Okay, so you get worried about it. Guess what? Now you're becoming fixated on your heart. I'm telling you guys, this hypersensitivity and awareness and this focus thing, it can almost happen overnight, believe it or not. And now you're getting other symptoms. And then for a lot of you, you're going to jump on Google and you're going to start looking this stuff up, and you're going to read some of the bad stuff. Now all of a sudden your chest starts to hurt. Now all of a sudden your heart starts to race, and it becomes that big of a deal. A big issue for me, guys, was I already had horrible issues with insomnia because I had really bad anxiety and panic. So my adrenaline was always going. So I already had issues with that. Sorry, they're building a fence over here, so you're going to hear some noise. But I already had issues, falling asleep anyways. But now I can't even sleep on my side, which nowadays, far removed from anxiety, I prefer sleeping on my back now. But at the time, it was hard for me to fall asleep on my back. So you add that in with the adrenaline, the panic, all the symptoms already, going from a side sleeper to a back sleeper to try to get this out of sight, out of mind thing, so I didn't hear it and it didn't trigger me. That was very difficult for me to do. So I toughed it out, for a little while, but it was just another way for me to constantly hear my heart, because I already had a problem with checking. But now it's like, man, at night, even if I'm trying not to check, because I know that's not a good thing for me to do, now I'm just laying down and I can hear everything so much more. It's like I don't get a break from it. So now if I'm going to try to lay on my back to get this out of sight, out of mind, which eventually I did start to do that a lot more, because I felt like I didn't have a choice and I was sick of hearing it, it's going to be even harder for me to fall asleep. So that's what I went through. And guys, I would hear, it was like having a mini stethoscope on, right? You're sitting there listening to it. You can feel things, you'll hear things that are not even really happening, guys. Our mind will play tricks on even something that we're hearing. I'm not kidding you. And sometimes just the fear of hearing things can make things change. My heart would do some wonky things, man, when I had anxiety. But I never passed out, I never fainted, never had a heart attack, none of that stuff. Never was I close to death. But if I could hear my freaking heartbeat or feel, I'm telling you, like I'm laying there listening to my pillow and I'm sitting there and I hear it's like beep, beep, deep, deep. And then guess what? I'm starting to focus in more. Guess what it starts to do? It starts to speed up. Ding, 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 ding. And I'm telling you, there'd be nights I'd lay there where I'd hear it slow down, speed up really fast, palpitate, slow down, speed up. I'd swear I would hear skip beats. Anxiety can cause that. So I'm over here thinking I got some electrical problem, an arrhythmia, or my heart's just going to freaking stop. So I would freak myself out. And I know this sounds ironic, but maybe some of you can relate. Even though it triggered me, I would still do it for some reassurance. Just like whenever I would check with my fingers, I would do that a lot more. Eventually I had to get away from checking, which helped, okay? Eventually, it's probably going to be a good idea at first, maybe to lay on your back to get some momentum going. So if you're dealing with this, guys, that's a normal deal with anxiety, or if you just notice it for the first time and it scares you, that's also normal. So the reason that you're feeling this, guys, if you do have health anxiety, our heart beats faster and we have higher blood pressure usually whenever it comes to anxiety. At least I did, especially if you have heart anxiety, really bad, health and heart anxiety. Our blood pressure can be higher and our heart rate can be faster. So my resting heart rate, it says it should be 60 to 100. If you look up what your resting heart rate is, I'm sorry, but it's still uncomfortable laying down in bed and your heart rate being like 90 at the upper parts of average to like 110 to 120, even outside of having a panic attack, and now that I'm hearing it in my pillow, it's even more triggering, and then blood pressure can be higher. So if your blood pressure is a little bit higher because of anxiety, it's going to make that thudding a little bit more apparent. So maybe that's also why you're hearing it now. I'm sure if I really focused back then, sorry, the lighting's a little weird. If I really focused back then before I had anxiety, I'm sure I could have picked it up and heard it, or it probably did happen a lot and I probably did hear it a lot. I just can't really remember it because it wasn't super significant and it didn't scare me. But now that I noticed it and I'm looking for it, it's like I'm going to pick up on it every single time. So the next thing, guys, is you are looking for it and you have this superpower that you don't want to have, and that's the hypersensitivity and the hyperfocus. I touched on it and explained it earlier, but that's another reason why this happens. You feel things that other people can't feel. You can even hear things that other people can't hear. Believe it or not, that's how sensitive you can be. You are more sensitive to the foods that you eat than people over here. You are more sensitive to the things that you see, the things that you take in, okay, visually. You're more sensitive to light. You can see eye floaters, for crying out loud, that you never were able to see before. That's another good example. You could see pieces of little debris in your eye because your eye is bringing in more light because you have anxiety at this point, right? And you have more hypersensitivity. So I became hear your heartbeat and every little detail of your heart rhythm and your pillow boy with that superpower that I didn't want to have. Okay, so those are the reasons why this could be happening. If it was caused by anxiety, or if you never had anxiety and then maybe you just noticed it for the first time, then anxiety took over after that. So a lot of you are dealing with that. Now, how do we get past this? Okay, there's the management. If you want to manage this and get some momentum, which I would encourage you in the beginning, try this out. the out of sight, out of mind approach, try laying on your back. I know for me, it was hard for me to fall asleep whenever I would try this out. But if it can give you some momentum, maybe get you away from that, just like I would tell somebody if they have a habit of checking their heart rate, I want them to get away from that. That way they can start to trust their heart a little bit more, trust what they're doing without micromanaging how fast it is. Also, you have to realize your subconscious is going to get attached to you checking, just like your subconscious is going to get attached to what you're hearing in the pillow, and it's going to need to know what's going on. Should I make him panic? Should I freak out so I can give him more symptoms so he'll go to the hospital to get checked? So that cycle can get started. So maybe in the beginning, try laying on your back. Something else you could do is maybe try to listen to some calming music or something to help you fall asleep, maybe an audiobook or something like that, in order to kind of take your mind off of it and to kind of keep that, the hearing portion of it kind of out of the equation for a little bit. But if you have a bigger problem than just this, right, and it either blossomed into something more, or you already had a big issue with heart anxiety, guys, you probably know what I'm going to say. We have to face our fears to overcome it. So what I would encourage you to do at some point, some of you may just want to skip the management phase and go right to this. I would start to express context of safety to your subconscious when you're trying to sleep at night. Okay. Now, if you haven't been to a doctor to get checked out and you're so worried about your heart, then you're going to have to go make that appointment to get to this portion. But if you've already made that appointment, you've been checked out and you've been told that you're healthy, the next step at this point is to start relaying that information to your subconscious. It wants to hear it from you. It doesn't want to, try to figure it out based off of what you hear in the pillow or by you checking or what you're looking up on Google or the constant asking of people around you. Okay. It needs to hear that things are good and that you're healthy and your heart's strong from you. So I would write down a big list of heart affirmations. We've been checked out. I've thought I had this at so many different times. I have a history with health anxiety where I thought there was all kinds of different things wrong with me over a period of time. I thought I was going to die last night when I heard my heart doing this, and I never did. My heart is healthy. My heart is strong. You see what I'm saying? You need to relay those subliminal messages to your subconscious while laying on your side and sleeping the way that you want to sleep. Tell yourself, this is how we sleep. This is the most comfortable way. This is how I go to sleep faster. I don't want to have to avoid this, right? So you get past the management. Now we start facing the fear after you gain a little bit of momentum by maybe sleeping on your back for a couple nights. But if you want to skip that phase, go ahead. If you want to stay in that phase, so be it. Okay. But for some of you, you want to get past this fear. It's going to be all about hearing it and telling yourself, look, my heart's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful organ. You know what I mean? It's so powerful. It's so strong. You know what happened with me during this whole period of time? Not just with the pillow thing, but with the whole heart anxiety thing. I became just afraid of my own heart. I didn't love it the way I should. I didn't appreciate it the way I should have. I was always scared of it, every little thing it did. And no wonder it did all kinds of wonky stuff. I wasn't feeding it love. I didn't believe in it. I didn't trust in it. So you have to start trusting your heartbeat. Outside of that, guys, if you have a bigger issue with health anxiety and stuff like that, I'm not going to go all into details and everything like that. I have a ton of other videos on my channel, but you got to start exercising. You got to get away from checking. You got to get away from Googling. You have to keep doing this context of safety to your subconscious. Sometimes you got to challenge the symptoms to bring it on. You can't do avoidance. You have to do more exposure with whatever triggers that you have to move towards recovery. If you want more help, guys, with your overall recovery process, if you do deal with anxiety, I got an awesome course down below in the description and the first pinned comment for those of you that are serious about getting better. Elite Anxiety Bootcamp. It's changing people's lives. You can see testimonies and all the course curriculum that's on there. Close to 100 videos, step-by-step on how I beat panic disorder, health anxiety, which a big part of that was the heart anxiety, and generalized anxiety disorder. If I did it, you definitely can. There's tons of downloadables also in that course, so check that out. If you're interested in coaching, if you deal with heart anxiety, health anxiety, panic disorder, have an email. You can reach out to me for that information. Is down below as well in the description and the first pinned comment. Subscribe if you're new, guys. Please like this video if you got value. And if you struggle with more stuff like this, tons of videos on my channel. So subscribe and check those videos out. I'll talk to you soon.